Family. Ain't it a bitch? So Hereditary tells the story of a small family that just endured the loss of their grandmother, starting to battle some sort of malevolent force that has some kind of link to their bloodline. Well, it's no secret to the horror community that this movie is probably the most hyped up horror release so far this year. Maybe that or A Quiet Place, but in my circles I've heard much more praise coming from the upcoming release of Hereditary. And I'll say right away, regardless of what my thoughts are on this movie, this is going to be an extremely divisive movie. You can tell already by the difference between the critic scores and the cinema scores on what the audiences like and what the critics like. So regardless of what I say as far as what I like and what I don't like about Hereditary, I will say that this is, if you were a horror fan, a must-see movie, just so you can form your own opinions, because this is a movie that everybody's going to get something different out of it.
Who's going to take care of me?
You don't think I'm gonna take care of you?
But when you die.
But as far as what I got out of it, we'll start right away with the positives. First and foremost, I like the tone and just the eerie vibe that goes throughout this entire movie. There's a good amount of just creepy eeriness from the very first frame all the way to the ending credits, to where you never quite know when something bad is going to happen. It's got enough atmosphere. The score helps out a lot with that as well, which is another big positive of, you know, this sense of something dreadful around the corner. You never know if it's going to happen in the next 5 seconds or in the next 50 minutes, but there is always a constant tone throughout Hereditary that some fucked up shit's about to happen at some point.
She had private rituals, private friends.
Another huge positive is basically all of the acting all around in this movie is damn good. I've already heard people talk about Oscar praise for Toni Collette. I'd say pump the brakes on that a little bit. She's damn good, but we still have a lot of movies left in the year to be talking about Oscar credit for somebody, so Toni Collette is very good in this movie. She's always been very good, but whenever you allow her to shine, she will show you that she is a very underrated actress. She proves that in Hereditary. You got Gabriel Byrne. This is a guy that's been around forever, from Usual Suspects to End of Days, and in this movie, he's a very subdued, understated version of Gabriel Byrne. He's kind of like the quiet father who kind of endures all of the pain for the family and kind of keeps his composure together and doesn't emote a whole lot, as his own version of kind of shielding everybody else from the pain, whereas Toni Collette is kind of the one that just lets everything out and lets every emotion be known, so he's very good. You got Millie Shapiro, who's playing the little girl Charlie in one of the weirdest and creepiest performances that I've seen this year. She's not like a really big grand character as far as what she does on screen. She's a very kind of background noise character, if that makes any sense, but her background noise is very loud because just the way that she kind of ticks to the whole thing where she's like, and just the way that she looks, there's something off about this kid, and you know from the beginning that something fucked up is about to happen surrounding this girl. Something's not right. She's either gonna bring some demons in, or some demons are gonna bring her in. There's something fucked up about her, and that all comes through on the performance of Millie Shapiro, because this is a very understated, grounded movie, so all of those weird emotions you get is just from watching this girl act.
Oh my God, what's that?
She isn't gone.
And while I do have one issue with his performance that I'll get into later, Alex Wolff is also very good. Now, I've only remember seeing this kid in the latest Jumanji movie as the main character before we get into the actual video game world. And in this movie, he kind of has to take on the main role alongside Toni Collette. You know, he's the one that is kind of the unsure party in this family. He's the one who's trying to figure out what the hell is going on. He thinks his mom's a little bit crazy. He doesn't really have a strong relationship with his dad necessarily. And he brings all of that forward. He definitely, whenever he's scared, you believe him. Whenever he thinks that things are going fucked up, he definitely brings the most emotion of any of the characters. But like I said, there's one little tick that he has that I will talk about later on. But for the most part, he's very good. And I'll give this movie props for being unique in a genre that I'm getting a little bit tired of. Now again, I will talk about that a little bit in my negatives, but as far as the positive on this movie, the whole thing with demon possession and haunted house movies and malevolent forces, we've seen it a million different ways, and Hereditary finds a way to kind of be an understated, grounded version that kind of doesn't really go for big, epic reaches as far as those genre goes, and try to have like this big epic scenes or like these really memorable creative things that they do as far as showing ghosts and stuff like that, but they take a very minimalistic approach that somehow feels very fresh within the genre, because it feels like almost like it's more of a drama than a horror movie in a lot of ways. I feel like if you tell people this is a horror movie, at least half of the horror fans out there might walk in a little bit disappointed because they know what to expect from this genre. Where if you tell them that it's a drama with some horror elements, I think you'll be much more better prepared. And that's kind of that unique take that they go for with this malevolent force genre, is that they're more of a dramatic sense than a horror sense, and it does work to make this movie feel fresh. And as a final positive for Hereditary, I will say this. Despite the fact that, obviously, since I'm already done with my positives, I'm going to have a decent amount to say that I don't like about this movie, and obviously it's not going to be as high on my praise list as some people that you will see, this movie is still in my head. There's still a lot of things about this that has my wheels turning. I didn't even want to review this movie until 2 days after I saw it. I saw this actually opening night, that I'm just now getting my review out because I've been so unsure about what I like and what I don't like, what I understand and what I don't understand, and that's cool. There's not very often that I get a movie that I can experience 2 hours of what they're doing and go home and I'm still experiencing it because I'm going over things in my head, I'm uncovering new things that might be, I'm watching explained videos that quite frankly aren't explaining shit, so don't waste your time. But this movie is in my head, and it's a movie that I feel like when I watch it a second time, I'm going to pick up even more that I didn't pick up the first time, and it's almost a movie that requires multiple viewings, much like Shutter Island and other movies that are kind of built around that multiple viewing sense. So on that alone, I will give a huge positive to Hereditary, that it's a movie that has stuck with me since I left the theater. Now moving into my negatives for Hereditary, the main negative with this movie for me personally is there is a huge pacing issue with this movie. Some people will say that the slow burn is brilliant, and all power to you. Like I said, everybody's gonna get something different out of this movie. For me personally, at least 3/4 of this movie, even though I was not bored, I was watching the movie and I'm just sitting there like, when is this gonna get going? Where is this movie heading? The actual plot of the movie doesn't even really uncover itself fully to where you know what the goal of this story is until like the last 25-30 minutes of the film. So the first 3/4 of this movie is just a lot of meandering. There's a lot of just slow burn. You're kind of getting to know the characters a little bit. You're getting some creepy vibes. There's a little scare once in a while, but there's a lot of pacing issues for me personally and what I go for a film in Hereditary. It felt like it could have been punched up a little bit more. It could have had a little bit more punch throughout the hour that leads up to this final act. Could have had a little bit more memorable scenes here and there. The slow burn works for me sometimes. In Hereditary, it was a little bit too much of a slow burn. A good comparison for me, and it's also an A24 film, so you know, you kind of know what to expect when you see A24 before a horror film, but last year's It Comes at Night. I was one of the people that did not like that movie hardly at all, although I appreciated what they were going for. Some of my negatives with that transfer over into this. So if you were on the same page as me as far as It Comes at Night being a very slow burn and kind of where is this movie heading and never quite getting there, some of that transfers over into Hereditary. While I will say Hereditary is much more satisfying, it actually does have an end game, whereas It Comes at Night, the whole genius of that movie was that nothing is coming at night, spoiler alert. But when you get into Hereditary, I feel like some of the negatives as far as the slow pacing and the meandering of that film, It Comes at Night, kind of transfers over into this. So if you've seen that one, that's a good little comparison for you. Now when I was talking about Alex Wolff being a very good performer in this movie, he is, and I'm looking forward to seeing him more, but there's one aspect of his character which honestly is probably more of a direction issue than his actual acting, or a mixture of the both possibly, but there's an aspect to his character where they try to devolve him down from this 18-year-old kid into almost like a lost little boy throughout the movie. The more that fucked up shit happens, the scarier things happen, the more malevolent shit that starts happening around this family, he starts to devolve into this little kid and like crying really bad and putting his head in his dad's shoulders. And you know, there's a part where Toni Collette is in another side of a room and he's saying, "Mommy, mommy, what are you doing?" And it comes across very corny to me. I know what they were going for and trying to just devolve this kid and his fear down to this lost little boy, but it does not come across that way for me. It just feels forced and it feels odd seeing this kid who's clearly in his early 20s playing an 18-year-old kid saying, "Mommy, mommy, help me." It just didn't land at all for me. Now, something that I will say that again is going to be one of those aspects of everybody gets something different out of Hereditary. This movie was very, very hyped as being like the scariest movie of 2018, the scariest movie of the past 5 to 10 years, the scariest theater experience you're gonna have this year. And do not believe that hype, especially if you're somebody that is constantly in the horror genre and you're constantly watching horror movies and you love being scared, but maybe you don't really find movies that scare you very often. Hereditary is going to be another one of those movies, because there was maybe 2 genuinely unnerving scenes in this movie that would kind of just make me feel uncomfortable, but that is the max emotion that I got out of this. There was never a point in any of the entire runtime of Hereditary where I would say that I was scared or on the verge of being scared, or even go as far as being startled by a jump scare. Like, it's not a scary movie. It's much more of a dramatic film. Like I've said, go in with those expectations. Don't go in with the hype of, I'm gonna have the shit scared out of me, because every time I believe that hype, I walk out disappointed. Hereditary is no different than that.
Never raise your voice at me! I am your mother!
And you know, ultimately for me personally, even though I like the fresh take that this movie does on the whole demon possession and haunted house genre, I feel like I'm getting really burnt out on that genre. You know, now that we've had the Paranormal Activity craze, we've had the Conjuring craze, we're probably gonna get another one, we've had the Insidious movies, it feels like all of the major horror films, all the tentpole films, all of the, like, you know, A24, like, you know, modest budget films that tear up all of the film festivals that are big hyped films coming out to the main theaters, they're all surrounding demon possession. They're all surrounding ghosts, malevolent forces, haunted houses. And at this point, I'm burnt out on it. So when I walk into Hereditary, I didn't watch any trailers. I knew nothing about this movie, which is the best way to go see horror movies nowadays, because trailers suck and give away the entire film or give away great scenes that you don't want to see. When I walked into Hereditary, and it finally uncovered itself throughout the runtime that this is just going to be a demon possession / haunted house malevolent force movie, I kind of got a little disappointed because I just seen so many of them. I want horror to take some new directions. I want this craze to just go back in its little box for a while and let's uncover something else. Hopefully Halloween 2018 brings back slashers, that's all I can say. And as a final negative for Hereditary, which is kind of a small negative because God knows I'll probably watch this movie 2 or 3 more times in the next couple of years, and I might uncover some answers for some of these questions that I still have, but there is some pieces of this story that I still cannot wrap my head around. I've talked to multiple people who have watched the movie that have the same exact questions that I have with 0 answers. I've watched at least a half a dozen explain videos. I've read articles. I've read actual quotes from the director. There are certain things in this movie that feels like it's just going to be plot conveniences written in to make the movie work and not necessarily something that actually makes sense. And that's a little disappointing when you have a movie that has so much beneath the surface to uncover on multiple viewings about tying the, you know, connecting the dots and tying things together and making sense of things that happen in the 3rd act by rewatching the 1st act from new eyes and new perspectives. There's some scenes in this movie that I'm not going to get into for spoiler reasons that I honestly believe at this point are just kind of holes to a degree that are not going to be answered by anybody. It's just going to be, I know it doesn't make sense, but just go along with it for the sake of the movie. And that's not good.
I just don't want to put any more stress on my family.
So overall, guys, I will definitely recommend that you check out Hereditary. It's definitely one of the most unique movies and one of the most thought-provoking movies for sure of this year. Not anywhere close to the most scared that I've been this year or the past 5 years or past 10 years or any other bullshit that they've tried to hype up about this movie. It's not a scary film. There's a couple aspects with the Alex Wolff character that I didn't like. There's a few holes that really bug me as many times I've tried to kind of go over it in my head. So for all those reasons, I will recommend this movie, but I will say go in with some modest expectations. So if you're a fan of the horror genre, you've been hyped up for Hereditary, definitely go out, check this out, but save your money, check it out at a matinee. So what do you guys think of Hereditary? Are you on the spectrum that thought this was a genius, brilliant movie that's going to be hailed as a classic over time, or are you on the more cinema score version and you thought this movie was an overrated piece of trash and you were bored to tears? Whatever side of the spectrum you were on, or if you're kind of in the middle like I was, put your thoughts down below on Hereditary. Put some of your own explanations for some of the different plot holes, and I'm sure you guys know what I was talking about too. Just be sure to put spoiler in big bold letters before your comment so we don't get a bunch of people pissed off and get this movie ruined for them. So talk about that down in the comment section below, guys. Please like and share this video. Hit that subscribe button if you're not already a subscriber. If you guys want to check out some of my social media links, you can check out Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, my Spreadshirt store for Cody Leach merchandise, and my Patreon page down in the video description below. Great way to get back to this channel is my Patreon page, and it's a good way to get cool exclusive content for your eyes only, like the Blu-ray digital copy codes that I give away to all my patrons every single week, and the ability to choose a patron request review or a topic for a video in the future. That's all patron exclusive, guys. So check that out, and if you guys want to check out some more of my videos, you can check out a few more by clicking right over here.